I'm Sepperson, and I'm the Vice Chair of the new NGO Committee on Intergenerational Solidarity, and my background is that I was a professor of sociology before I retired.
Hello, I'm Veronica Mloyan. I'm the director of the board of the Armenian International Women's Association. We will hold our parallel event here on the 13th at 4:30, and everyone is invited to join. Thank you.
Well, for a first timer, you're really good.
Hi, good morning. My name is Samantha Darrows. I'm a small business owner out of Brooklyn. New Star Electrical and Elevator Supply.
How did you end up here?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm with New Future Foundation.
Fantastic, thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. I'm representing Dr. Maxwell. Delta Sigma Theta.
We miss her, thank you so much for being here. And there's two over here. Oh, she's fine. Oh, there's one over there.
Good afternoon. My name is Aida Wallet. I'm a founder of a new NGO, Justice and Dignity for Women of Sahel in Africa. So we are just starting here in New York.
Welcome.
For gender-based violence.
Hope you will join us during CSW.
Hello, I'm Reverend Carol Houston. I'm on the board of International Women's Convocation, and we will have our first time parallel event in this building on March 19th. And I hope you will join us. It's about projects in rural areas.
Just behind you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley. I'm from Buddhist Sushi Foundation and I'm newly transferred to New York. Looking forward to know everyone and learn from you all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natalie Peterson. I'm a master's student at Pace University in their global psychology program.
Thank you both for being here, and I'm curious, how did you end up here? People told you? Both.
Oh, yes, my professors and friends that are involved in ICP told me I was
Fantastic.
studying.
Yeah, I'm always curious, and thank you all for being here, old and new friends and members. Right, I'm going to briefly give you updates from UN Women. Everything that I'm telling you right now, you will get in an email, so go ahead and take notes, but also links and that sort of thing, you will have it in a MailChimp from us. And then I'll just give you a quick update on NGO CSW64. Then we'll start the program, and I'll explain what the program is. All right. So for the registration for CSW64 Youth Dialogue is open. The deadline is pretty soon. It's the 23rd. So we're going to send out a MailChimp specifically for this as soon as possible. They are asking for global youth to apply. So if you know any young person who you think should be in the UN Women Youth Dialogue, use that link and have them apply. It's limited, the space they have and the conversation is limited to only 100 people. I know that's disappointing because we would love to have thousands of youth have their voices heard, but the selection will be very succinct, I guess, and the selection process is also very public too, so that you can see how they're trying to get diversity from different regions. And then those 100 youth members will commence during CSW. I believe it's on the first day, March 9th. So you'll get all that information in an email today. The information on the official side events, again, approximately 250. I am also surprised UN was able to squeeze in that many, considering they're only open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. But if you notice, some of these side events, they change their hours. They're like 45 minutes instead of 90 minutes. So they're being clever too. We did not cut back on our hours, but we did add lots of rooms. So for that, those side events will be posted by the end of tomorrow. The reason that is important is because people who don't have passes to UN were not able to register part of the 20. Look at those side events and see which ones are open for RSVP so that you can get in with a ticket. You know, we've been saying this for years, and I just want to reiterate and remind people that, you know, we sometimes say UN is not accessible, but we need to help each other and get ourselves in there whenever we can. So I do know there's a few who will need RSVP, so please do so. Look at the list and pick a topic and go. Registration of expression of interest to make an oral statement during some of the high-level interactive dialogue and during the general discussion is now closed. I mean, this is what she had told us a few weeks ago. The good news is that they have record applicants. So I'm really, everybody, I will applaud you all for applying, because remember we had this discussion last time where we said we want to show UN Women and member states that civil society is interested in being in there and hearing our voices. And now, so if you do get selected, please make sure you show up and you sit in that chair until the last minute of that session, hoping that they will call on you, and have a statement ready, have a strong statement ready so that our voices are heard. And this is a future event, but we decided, I mean, Victoria said it's important to let you know. As you know, there's a special high-level meeting during UN General Assembly, the 25th anniversary, you know, that whole day. So the application for that will be open soon, and it will close. The multi-stakeholder hearing, okay, let me just tell you exactly how it says, because I don't want to get confused. The special accreditation for the high-level meeting of the UN General Assembly, which is 23 September, and multi-stakeholder hearing, which is 21 July, on the 25th anniversary of the Fourth World Conference on Women, will open tomorrow, and it will last until 16 March. So the fact that it closes on 16 March, we want to alert you all to apply before CSW starts, because we're going to be busy and we might forget to apply. So we will send this link out as well. When it opens, we'll figure out how to put this in a MailChimp, and you know, so we apologize if we're sending you too many MailChimps, but this information is important, so bear with us and look at this. I think that's it from UN Women. And then as far as NGO CSW64 is concerned, I'm just very, very excited. I mean, we're still tweaking and finalizing our handbook. It will go to press any minute now.
On Monday.
To be printed on Monday. And then we're very, very happy with how the handbook turned out, and we can definitely thank Pam and Alexa. She's here.
Pam, who's Pam?
Yvonne. I'm so sorry, Yvonne.
Okay, it's okay.
I'm thinking ahead.
I know.
As I'm thinking, I have EC members here. I want to thank, well, okay, let me just take a minute to thank Yvonne and the Handbook Committee for everything that they've done. But you guys know how I am. I'm always trying to be fair. I just want to acknowledge the rest of my EC who has been kick-ass and amazing. So I have Margarita, Susan, Pam, Rosa, of course Ivy here, Sunyan here, and I don't know if I'm missing anybody else. Yes, Safira's there. So thank you all so much for all your support. I said Susan, right?
Yeah.
Susan, I did say Susan, right?
You did. So now you said it twice.
I can't.
Don't forget visas.
Yes. So what I was, love my Susan. So we're doing really good on reception sales. So if you are interested, I think we will sell out within the next week. Just giving you a warning. It's not up to us to squeeze people in after it sells out. The space itself does not hold more than 550. We're close to 500 sold already. The consultation day is going pretty quickly. We have not even started promoting our speakers. The program, I know you got a program preview in our newsletter, is really turning out to be amazing. It's going to be a fun, full day. So if you're interested in consultation day, please purchase tickets, and also invite friends who always want to know what NGO CSW is all about. This is the one day where they can spend a day in Harlem, enjoy lunch out. We'll talk about that some other time because I haven't confirmed yet. There's going to be some fun things. But yeah, it's a great way to learn what's going on in NGO CSW and globally with gender equality. The last announcement I have is on visas. So unfortunately, we are hearing about visa denials. It's not shocking, but unfortunately, some of the denials are really shocking. But if you know of anyone, please email us. You can email me, Huri at NGO CSW, info at NGO CSW, and especially Susan at, well, you have a Gmail. Yeah, Susan O'Malley4 at gmail.com. Susan is graciously volunteering to help with this. We're doing the spreadsheet, and we will go back to Washington. As you know, we were there. Yeah, we were there this summer thanks to Queen Mother, and we have kept our contacts with them, and they are interested in hearing who's being denied.
ISHR.
And ISH, yes, Susan's working with ISHR. All right, is there any quick questions before we start the program? Yes?
Yeah, for the program, for the forum, is Gertrude Mangala prominent in this program?
She's being, yeah, I think we have a letter from her, right?
Yeah, but is she on the program itself as the former?
Which program? Consultation Day?
Yes.
Is she here in person?
She's going to be there.
Well, we'll see. We'll think about
Because
that.
as the
She was there 5 years ago. I remember very well.
Yeah, 25 years, General Secretary.
Yes.
With a
Well, thank you.
USG status. One would expect.
Gertrude is a real good friend of NGO CSW, and Sun Yan Yun, I remember you got her here 5 years ago at the Apollo Theater for Beijing Plus 20. So, I mean, we will definitely consider inviting her. She's more than welcome to join us. I don't know how you can see where in the program she can fit in. I hadn't thought about that, but thank you for the suggestion. She's obviously important. Yes?
Is there any concern about the virus?
Not really. We sent out an email already. Obviously, people who are quarantined or, are in countries that are not allowed to travel will not be able to travel. I'm sure it's going to affect us a little bit. We're going to lose some members or people who wanted to be here and can't be here. But we're not afraid. We're in touch with the city health department. We're in touch with the U.S. rules. I mean, we're following everything that we follow. And the one thing I tell my friends, actually, mine who just had a baby called me at 11 p.m. one night and said, the fever's not going down. The baby's only 6 months old. Is it coronavirus? They live downtown. And of course it's scary and dangerous, and I wish this would never happen, and I wish rural areas had doctors and medicine that could treat this right away. The good news is that we are in New York City. We are, in a city that has good doctors, and if, God forbid, it starts coming to our shores, I'm not as afraid as people, women and girls in rural areas where they don't have access to doctors. So that's my take on it,
I am afraid, Huri, and we all should be, because while you, with some privilege, can say that, Black and brown people in the U.S., if they get it, they die.
I understand what you're saying.
We have to speak in.
Absolutely. You heard what I said, right? I mean, we're lucky to be in New York City with access with hospitals and doctors. My heart goes out to women and girls who are in rural areas without access.
And in New York.
That should cover anybody who doesn't have access to doctors. Yes.
Corey, yes. New York is being very cautious, and we're hearing more on Long Island. There were some of you may have heard of this, there were 24 people that came in from China or one of the countries there, and they were quarantined automatically. They did not have any symptoms, so they're automatically quarantining.
That's exactly why I'm not afraid.
So they're being very strict, yes.
I'm not an alarmist. You guys can say whatever you want. I am not going to change my opinion to be an alarmist. I am here as chair of NGO CSW to tell you I'm not afraid. I'm going to be at NGO CSW Forum. If you have any doubts, I can't make anybody show up, and I'm sorry, you know, if I sound too optimistic, but that's who I am. All right, one last, and then we have to go with our program. Thank you.
I heard Mama Gertrude Mangela's name being raised.
Yes.
It's important. Some of us are in contact with her constantly. One of the concerns that she has for her women is about visas. So is Susan, if you could reach out to her, even for herself getting a visa to come to, because Tanzania has been banned from the U.S. So please.
Talk and get information and email.
Yeah, please get back to her.
All right. Thank you for raising all of these issues. That's what we're here for, to hear from each other and support. All right, is everybody ready to start our today's program? It is exactly 1:30, and we decided today to really get together and update you on where we're at with all the preparations that most of you have been signed up to. You know, you've joined some of our meetings, the advisory working group, the thematic group. You're going to hear all about that. So today's meeting is about us letting you know the big picture and what's happening with all these different groups, and then also giving you a chance to raise your concerns, questions, and giving you a chance to still get involved. There's plenty of opportunity for everybody to still be involved. We don't want anybody to feel like the ship is passing by or the train is passing by and they're not understanding what's going on. So let me quickly say, since there are a few new people, what is happening. CSW, Commission on Status of Women, has been meeting for 64 years, I guess, right? So, because today, I mean, this year we're celebrating, or we're gathering for CSW64, which is celebrating Beijing plus 25. Beijing happened 25 years ago in China, and that was the event where Beijing Platform for Action was agreed upon by 180 countries. 80. And it was the document that really changed the feminist movement and advanced our cause in so many ways. It was so good, we were so excited. I was obviously not in the field at the time, but feminists at the time were really pushing it forward, and we got a lot achieved. But what happened in the last couple of years, we noticed that, as you all know, if you've been following CSW, there's a lot of pushback, and we are not meeting our goals, and on the contrary, sometimes it's being pushed back. So UN Women decided that let's try something new. UN Women also was feeling the pressure because they're about to celebrate their 10th anniversary, and they want to feel like it was a good idea to create UN Women and that they are making a difference and a change, and they felt like they were not moving fast enough. So they came up with this idea of generation equality forums. And I've said this before, nobody has stopped me or sued me yet, so I'm gonna say it again. The best way I can explain what Generation Equality Forum is that a corporation is doing a retreat somewhere else, bringing all of their good players and strong players and taking them to another space and saying, get together, think of what's the best way of doing this, and then we move forward. That's just me, okay? Do not quote that from UN Women or anybody else. That's just me to try to explain to lay people. So, Generation Equality Forum was announced over a year ago now, and then they got France and Mexico to become partners with them. France to represent Global North, Mexico Global South, and then they reached out to us, NGO CSW, and said, could you start convening civil society to consult and let us know what are the most important priorities that you think we should work on for the next 5 years to make real difference, not just on paper, like actual difference. And we started the process in the middle of the summer. It was really fast. They told us end of June. In July, we started getting the word out, and all of a sudden we had 400 or 500 people emailing and saying we want to be part of this, so we created something called Advisory Working Group. The advisory working group is still open. If you are interested to be part of that group, please email beijing25@ngocsw.org or info@ngocsw.org, and let us know and we'll add you to that list. That group has been meeting religiously every 2 weeks via Zoom. So those recordings are available, and I believe they're on our website, or we're uploading them on our website, but they're available. So if you ask for it and you have time, it's basically an hour each meeting, and you can listen to it and learn who contributed, what we talked about, and what was going on. So that's available. And then from the advisory working group, a selection committee picked a group of 21 advisory group. So there's advisory working group, then advisory group came out of it's almost 400 people. The group of 21 are representative of global, regional, and expert feminists. So it's as diverse as we could make it. And that group of 21 actually has been meeting and is now working closely with the core group, which is UN Women, France, and Mexico. So from the group of 21, we chose 2 to represent us into the core group, because it's difficult to, especially when you're dealing with global groups, time zones are ridiculous. Like, that's our hardest thing, is trying to figure out when we're gonna meet because of time zones. So we have Shannon Kowalski, who represents Global North, who lives in New York City, and Mabel Bianco, who I'm sure most of you know. She's been a friend of NGO CSW and is a co-chair of one of our regional NGO CSWs. She represents Global South. So Shannon and Mabel meet regularly with the core group, and they meet regularly with the group of 21 to get ideas and opinions on how to actually create a forum, a generation equality forum, what is on the program. And as you know, we also had an input with the action coalitions. We have 6 action coalitions, and all of that came out of that group. Another group that you're gonna hear, I'm not gonna say too much about it, is the Feminist Women's Movement Action Plan. So just remember that FWM. Right here, this is something really exciting, and I'm not gonna say more, just pause that name in your head until Sunyan prepares you. So let's see. Yes, so we're consulting with them, and action coalitions are decided, and now we are working on the program for Mexico and Paris. So there's going to be 2 meetings, one in Mexico, May 7th and 8th, and one in Paris, July 7th to 10th. It's going to be a smaller meeting. I'm not even sure if I'm going, and I'm the civil society convener, but there will be a selection process for which NGOs should go if you're interested in those action coalitions or a different topic that you want to be representing. I'm going to stop here for a second and see if there are any questions, because I always feel like at this point I already gave way too much information. If there are no questions, then I will, yes.
Okay, my one question is, would you share all that information with us, not just the links, but we have the context of it, because it's a lot of information.
That's exactly why we keep having this conversation, and thank you for pointing that out, Shiva. This information, exactly how I explained it, is on our website too. We also have a deck, what's called a civil society deck, which is on our website. The deck is kind of even easier than all the paragraphs or all the different information that's all over. Believe it or not, we spend as much time, or maybe too much time, we don't even have that much time to think about how else can we formulate this idea to make it easy and understood. So if there was something, some place where your head got stuck on and you want to ask me a question now, fine. I mean, I guess I could draw on a board too on how it started, and the advisory working group, and then advisory group. Yes?
Out of curiosity, just ask out of curiosity, out of curiosity, I think you could hear me.
Yeah.
The word feminist.
Yes.
Why are we using that word, and what does that really represent in terms of all women? Are all women
It's the feminist
with...
and women's.
Women.
So if you
So,
identify as a
self as a
woman,
woman,
you are
and not
definitely
as a
part of this
feminist?
group. If
Okay.
you identify as a feminist, you are part of this group.
Okay, it's inclusion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you identify as a they, you're part of this group. We know that, right? Don't forget, because it's all about self-identity. So however you identify, you are welcome. Yes? Questions? No? Let's move on. And then we're going to have a lot more discussion time later. So guess what? You're going to hear about the Feminist and Women's Action Plan now. Sorry. And is Alicia doing the PowerPoint? She has it. The rock star has it.
I just wanted to put new batteries on.
Hi everyone, my name is Soon Young Yu. I'm the UN representative of the International Alliance of Women. And I'm here to talk with you about the Feminist and Women's Movement Action Plan. So don't tell anyone else this, but it actually gave birth on my birthday. Because I was feeling this is very frank, I was feeling very discouraged about looking forward to a lot of meetings, a lot of energy spent, a lot of receptions and panels and celebrations, and worried that at the end we weren't going to come out any better or stronger. So with a group of people, I'm happy to say, we were able to think about some kind of approach that might take us to different places. And like the UN Women's approach, which is innovate. By the way, this is Year of the Rat. You know the Year of the Rat?
Yes.
Anyone know?
Yes.
Year of the Rat means
You're aware.
new beginnings.
Yes.
It's the beginning of the 12 zodiac
That's right.
cycle, and innovation. It's also very busy. So looking for innovation, looking for new approaches. So a lot of what I'm going to present is not without contestation. It is for dialogue and discussion and thinking. So I'm going to start with a quick quiz, which is, who can tell me what was the theme of the Decade for Women 1975 to 1985? Raise your hand if you know that there was 3 words. What was the theme of the Women's Decade? Yes.
Equality, development, and peace.
Can you stand up and tell everyone, please? And what is your name?
My name is Leslie Wright from Sant International, and it was Equality, Development, and Peace.
Equality, Development, and Peace. Thank you. The reason I wanted to bring that up is because at the time and all the way through the Beijing process, equality, development, and peace were seen as interlinked and mutually supported. And that concept that we have to look at the relationships between those must stay with us. So you need peace in order to have a sustainable development. And you also need it the other way around. Without it, and with unequal, marginalized people with unsustainable development, you have a very unstable political system. Equality most recently has been put right in the middle of those two. And what's interesting, I think, is the importance of the argument that women's engagement as peacekeepers, for example, is really the key to sustainable peace. So let's begin thinking of the interlinkages, because that helps us get through a lot of small themes. So in that context, if I could have the next one, I wanted to place us in the context of UN 75. So as you know, this is the year of many celebrations, Security Council Resolution 1325, UN 75. And why is it important for us to remember that? It's because we were there at the very beginning of the UN. We actually created the Commission on the Status of Women in 1946, the first commission to be created. We, meaning the women's movement, created that. It was our demands that led to those world conferences, not governments as such. Mexico 75, Copenhagen 1980, Nairobi, and then Beijing in 1995. And we were the movers and shakers that created UN Women. Do you remember the year campaign? So
let's remember that the UN is actually our legacy, and we helped shape the institutions in it. So this year, Beijing 25, very interestingly enough, becomes also the celebration of our history with the UN. Next. So here are some of the ideas of why a feminist and women's movement action plan, or plans quite more precisely, would be very, very important to look at. We have an opportunity during Beijing Plus 25 to leverage the power of that global consensus. It was 189 countries that agreed to the Beijing Platform for Action. But the Beijing Platform for Action, with its 12 critical areas of concern, is a policy guide. It is the golden standard of policy guide, but it is not legally binding. So what is? How can you use something that makes it stronger? Sheila is smiling. Tell us, what can we do with it? What can we?
You're the right person.
You want to stand up and say? You have to speak.
Well, hello everybody.
Hello.
I was smiling because of her face, but first I'd say CSW.
That's right. That's right.
You all know what that is. And all of these other instruments like Beijing, yeah, I know that, Georgia, yeah, and Resolution 1325, whatever it is, all the basis of that is CSW. And so, since she's a champion behind Cities for CSW, I'm sure she'll tell you more about that. I won't want to upstage you.
You already did. So let's remember Beijing 25 is about the Beijing Platform for Action, but since then we have a wonderful instrument, the Human Rights Treaty for Women, and we need to put them together in everything that we do. So for the Feminist and Women's Movement Action Plan, we are extremely ambitious in the sense that we really want to create a transformative framework. A transformative framework that breaks down the silos between the way we're thinking of our problems. And I'll give you an example. Violence against women. We are normally concerned with rescue of the victim, and we are concerned with statistics about the lack of judiciary access, but we don't always look at the economic basis of her situation. Does she have decent work? Is there an option for her to leave home? So it's a very simple example. I know many of you have thought of it and brought it up, but here's our chance to look at all the different areas in which we could possibly intervene to make sure that women are resilient and strong throughout their lifetime. One example of that, give some thought to this, is girls' education. If you have quality girls' education, you prolong her age of marriage, you actually reduce the rate of maternal mortality. You give her resilience if she has to go through a war or if she's caught in a natural disaster. You reduce the possibility she's going to be trafficked or that she has to be a refugee in another country with no options. And in old age, you have the possibility that she actually might not be published. So there are things like that that we're trying to talk about when we say breaking silos. The second thing that we could see happening when we do that is building new alliances. So our women's movement now is very fragmented. So we do, another organization, environment organization, I follow the climate change conference. We have gender CC, gender constituency there. And we really work on the climate negotiations. I just came from Abu Dhabi to the World Urban Forum. A huge feminist group is following cities. And then we have ICPD with sexual reproductive health and rights, and then CSW, where not everyone comes together, but it's the one place where we have the potential to do that. So it's very clear that what's happened since the 90s is that we are working in silos. We are working in silos, and that is not helping us break the silos. So here is our chance to imagine ways in which we could work across silos. The other thing which I'll put out there, which is really more hypothetical, is that since 1995, it's very clear that women did what we told them to do. We told them to go into the arenas of power, run for politics, become head scientists, head the foundations. And so we are in different places now, very different places than we were in 95. So that's why we have to also imagine different kinds of alliances in different places where our feminists are now located. So here, I just want to introduce my co-drivers. Melissa Upreti, who is a lawyer, human rights lawyer, working with Prashanti Demiraj, Center for Women's Global Leadership, and then myself, and the three of us are driving the process. Next. So when we first thought of this, Melissa said to me, you know, we need some people to do this. So I said, well, you know, we're going to get at least 50. So we put the call out there. And as of now, we have close to 3,000 people who signed up for this process. And we disaggregated them. This is quite a while ago that we started disaggregating them, but the green thing on the top are people who are working in the Africa region. That's huge. The blue thing on top are people who are working more at the global level. So that's the regional distribution of the people who are following at the moment. Thematically, there are only 5 represented here, but the largest one that you see, interestingly enough, is actually on poverty reduction. And the other one is the one that we would imagine, which is violence against women. How am I doing that time? That's okay. So, next. So here are the sort of approach that we're recommending that we've actually taken a little bit through time, but not everybody starts with this, so we keep repeating this so that those who just start today, for example, might imagine that this might be the approach that they would use to participate in this process. We are advocating that in the very beginning we need to discover. It's a period of discovery in order to find hope. And if you study, as the study group has, the Beijing Platform Action, CEDAW, and the SDGs, you look at the text, you actually have the possibility to discover and reclaim the treasures that are there. Then you need to find a space for dialogues with your NGOs, with those who know a lot or who need to know a lot. And through this kind of collective dialogue, we can find courage. We plan to take our demands based upon this to the Generation Equality Forums in Mexico and Paris, and then to the General Assembly in September with special sessions. I'm going to skip this one. Next. So in order to build momentum, here is what you see in the chronology. If you want to take a picture of this, this is probably your best chart of how this is all fitting together. So we began with the national reviews, remember last year? And a lot of you might have been involved with your country's national reviews. Then you have the regional meetings that happened, Europe, I know Susan was there, and a lot of you were in Europe, Africa, etc. That's all finished. And then we have CSW64, during which we are going to have this amazing gathering of people, but at the end we really need to come up with something. So there's going to be a program that we can share with you later. Then we will go to Mexico the 7th and 8th, to the Generation Equality Forum, to Paris 7 to 10, and those will be convened by UN Women and governments, but very much guided and how shall I say, directed by civil society groups. The GA in September is extremely important because that's when your government, our government, is going to come and say what they have accomplished for Beijing 25, along with UN 75. So there are 2 special sessions that are going to come together. And then we have next year, CSW65 and beyond. So let's imagine that what we're working for in this Feminist and Women's Movement Action Plan is beyond this year. It's beyond Beijing 25. And let's try to shape something which is innovative and which has impact going forward. Next. We have held these virtual conferences because, first of all, they're really cheap compared to a real conference. And we've averaged 400 registered people, registered participants for each of the conferences. And we've had 4 of them so far, covering those 6 areas that I think you'll become familiar with. So the ones in red are still pending. So I think all of you have received links to be able to register for those. They're still open. Next week is Peaceful and Inclusive Societies. We'll have Sharon Buckman-Rolls from Fiji talking. We'll have Mavic, who is with the Network of Women Peace Builders. And in each of the sessions, we intentionally invite people who are working in other areas, like environment or in violence against women, or something, in this case, unrelated. And we ask them to talk about how their particular specialization relates to the theme at hand. March 3rd, Environment, Conservation, Protection, and Rehabilitation. That language comes from the Beijing Platform for Action, but I guarantee most of it will be talking about the crisis of our time, which is climate change. Climate emergency has to be on the top of our list of things to address at CSW64 and going forward. And we have cross-cutting issues, human rights, health, climate change, and girl child, but the truth is, they are all cross-cutting to each other and mutually supported. So what that means for us is no matter where you start, you belong there. And all you have to do is imagine working across with other themes, with other groups. Next. Now this one is very hard to see, but I think you actually have this on the website already. Yep. Yeah? So it's just my portrayal of it to put it in red. So what's going to happen on March 9, 10, and 11? First of all, for those of you who are belonging to the ECE caucus, your session is on Monday night in this room. So you will have an orientation. You know, we do these trainings on women's human rights, an orientation to the UN. That session is here on Monday night. But before then, we have 3 sessions in the mornings, 3 sessions in the afternoon, with lots of yoga interlude, coffee interlude, healing interlude in between. I think we have almost half of the room filled. This is the Armenian auditorium, and we were asking about registrations. It holds like 250.
Yes, 240 sitting down and more if you want to stand. 117 almost in each
session. Yeah. So you should register if you want to attend these, because just because. Now, at this point, I would like to explain something extremely important, which is that you should not confuse our process with UN Women. And you should not confuse our process with NGO CSW New York. The reason this is important is when we start these sessions, we will make the participants in the room agree to a code of conduct, and we will make them think about whether they agree with feminist principles. And if they feel they can't do that, then we will ask them to leave. That is something which NGO CSW never does. It's an open forum, it's a different place. So remember that that will happen there, and when it happens, please help us to explain why that is happening. That is happening because we are totally independent from NGO CSW New York. At the same time, NGO CSW New York is facilitating all of the Global Working Group and this process. So they have generously facilitated this conversation. So what we expect is that representatives from the core group and UN Women will come there and will also be part of the program. We've just invited them today. They will get 15 minutes to present their concepts for the action coalitions, etc., on these themes. And that will allow everyone in the room.
I'm sorry.
No, but, okay. I'm winding up. I want everyone in the room to be able to connect the dots there. But this space is intended to be a creative space. So please come, register, and be part of that conversation. Next. So thank you very much for your Vision 25 energy. That's the way I can say it. And during our virtual conferences, we have a raffle. We have a raffle, and we throw everyone's names into a virtual hat, and we draw out a name. And so far, we've had winners from Nigeria, Mauritius, London, and New York. And today I decided that we should give one to Huri. She's been seeing this now for she's never gotten a t-shirt.
You should bring it, so we can.
Wait, is that cheating? Because I didn't win.
This is the t-shirt she's getting. It's Lidu's Fierce Feminist t-shirt.
It's really.
There's questions, yes. Before we move on, Queen Mother, yes, is first. Okay.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on the body of work that you have just presented to us. I have a little concern, I'm sure, as we move the concept around and have real clarity based on what you just stated to us about the feminist. I'm going back to the word feminist, and how will we shape it, and what is the real engagement with the CSW and UN Women, which is very sensitive and very political from my understanding of both of those groups within the United Nations. So a little bit more clarity if you can. Thank you.
You first? Take it first? Okay. I also want to clarify something. Like I said, we're not dropping women. You know, women are welcome if they are willing to listen and be present with the idea that we are pushing the boundaries with generation equality. This is in the context of this new way of doing things. And the fact of the matter is that even UN Women is pushing their boundaries when they say, we want to have this be a feminist action, right? And I don't think this is a secret, it's public information. Gates Foundation gave something like $10 million because they believe that we should push feminist agenda so that we can move a women's equality at a faster and better rate. This is my description of it. Again, everybody will have their own way of describing this. And the fact of the matter is that we got part of that funding. This room is rented by that part of, a little bit part of that funding. Because, and I will always say NGO CSW is an open space for everybody, but I will draw the line when people will stop us from advancing to be equal to all. You know, women and girls have to be equal in all aspects, and sometimes it's the feminist movement that's going to push us forward, and I'm for that, but I'm open to listening to all sides of the women's movement.
So my explanation is a little different.
I'm sure each of us.
My explanation is, my husband is a feminist. My grandfather was a feminist. I have a lot of people around me who are friends who don't identify themselves as women. They identify themselves as non-binary or transsexual, and they belong there. So for me, feminist helps me make sure that they're welcome. That's my explanation.
Yes.
And I agree with your explanation too. Any other questions? Sheila?
Can we get questions on this side too?
Yes.
With all due respect.
Yes.
Okay, wait. We're coming.
Thank you, Sonia. You mentioned those who participated from Fiji and Nigeria, but are there any in this room who participated in that conversation when you were having a seminar via Zoom.
You mean the Maestro meetings?
Yes.
Or the Zoom meeting, both
Yes.
of them, yes, absolutely.
Maybe you need to acknowledge those people who participated in this room, and I'm one of them.
Would you like, yeah.
You know, that's
Actually,
what's
you're right.
missing.
I
you
actually
know?
should say.
Acknowledging, appreciating.
That's right.
When you give ideas and suggestions,
Yeah.
don't eat it up, just share.
Thank you for
Say,
that reminder.
Thank you.
And this is why
That is missing among women internationally.
I agree
That
with
is
you.
disgusting.
I agree with you and I apologize. And this is why I need friends in the room to remind me of things I need to do. Who in this room is part of the advisory working group first? Advisory working group? All right, so I guess they're not here. You are. And who in this group is signed up for the Maestro calls and participates? I'm kind of jealous. Sun Young's group has more in this room than advisory working group. But I do understand because the advisory working group is definitely global. And thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. Because we're only human. We can only remember to do so much. I forgot to introduce new people last month, and this month I remembered. Go ahead, Sheila.
I'll be quick. This is a safe space for us to be uncomfortable, right? And share that uncomfortableness without, being defensive or anything like that. What I want to say is that I applaud you for the work you're doing. I don't know if everything you do you begin on your birthday, but I applaud you. But I want to caution though, because many years ago, during the PrepCom of the Beijing platform, of course I was with you on radio, this feminist agenda had great backlash. People hated Bella Abzug, people rest their soul, that sort of thing. I did a ton of interviewing you in radio for this. And what we found out was that the African woman, and many in Southeast Asia, were saying that we were talking in the United States about feminism and feminist agenda without taking their situations into concern. Speciosa Wandira, former vice president of Uganda, gave me an interview where she blasted the feminist movement and what it has done on Africa and on African women. So, Sun Young, you mentioned the principles of feminism and what it means. And I would only hope that before people get to the room, that there is some broadcast of sorts of what those are to those who don't know about it. And my last question is that I know that the driving force behind this, is it with all the countries that have participated, are you expanding those driving forces to include Africa and elsewhere on this? Because sometimes when people see other people talking to them and talking for them, which is what you want to change when you talk about break out of the silos and that. And I suppose mostly it's a suggestion than it is a question. So if you expand that driving force to strengthen this powerful platform that you've developed, because then we see faces all the time that I hear a rumble, and sometimes people are afraid to talk about what they're feeling, that there's going to be a backlash. There can't be any backlash in NGO CSW. It's a place where we feel uncomfortable, and we are sisters, and if there's any brothers in here, and we must be free to ask. That's why she's there, and that's why she's there.
Thank you, Sheila.
So, I confess I'm not quite sure what the question is, but
Are you expanding the driving?
so all I can say is that the reason why this process has to exist is because the worst thing that could happen is for groups to feel excluded. And when we were talking about the presentation today, I said they don't care about organization. They're worried they're not part of it. And so that's why this thematic group sign up that we have is still open. every day there are a group of people who are signing up, and it will remain open after CSW because this allows us then to put them in touch with what's going on. I personally have gone through the organizations that are starting to sign up. We just saw the regional representation from Africa. We are young men against FGM in my village. And it is, if I could say something that struck me about this process, it's bigger than we think it is. What we're doing goes further than we think it does. And the way we're seeing it are the people who are coming to us in English. That's only in English, although a lot of them are signing up in Spanish and Arabic, all languages as well. But what we are doing is having a global impact, but we can't see it. And no one is speaking for anyone else, for sure, for sure.
Thank you. Hi, you know me, but again, for the ones who didn't. Fatma Aytaç from Turkey. I'm representing my NGO, it is called Red Pepper Association. I have a question, maybe you talked about this, but we came quite late, sorry about it. Action Coalition Leadership. I think the application is, tomorrow is the due date, so is this application, Action Coalition Leadership, only for the youth, or, I mean, could you please make an explanation about it? Because I'm trying to form a youth group in my NGO. So if you give more information, I will appreciate. Thank you.
Yes, you still have another day to send. We have a form actually that we sent out. I wonder if we can send it out again and say 24-hour notice, where civil society can put their work forward. We definitely are encouraging that. The advisory working group got that form. I think we also, I don't know where else we shared it.
It's not for the leadership, it's not a form, you just have to send your...
Send in, yes, that's right, that's right. I'm just trying to think how we can make that available easily, like, because you just send it, you send a 1 to 2 page explanation of who the organization is and what your expertise is and how you can help. And they are definitely looking for youth groups for each action coalition. So we're encouraging everybody to send that.
It's action.
It is UN Women, it's not us. Action Coalitions is UN Women.
The email address is actioncoalitions@unwomen.org.
Now it's getting better. It's very bright.
And this was in the newsletter. Yeah. All right.
So bright now, it bothers my eyes.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm aware of the young professional team of NGO CSW, so I'm wondering if we have any youth-focused movement in action to the youth forum during CSW.
Yes, you're going to hear more about that in a minute.
Thank you.
Yes, Ivy will report on some other activities that are going on during CSW64. Can we move? Oh, there's one more here.
Just a quick question. I represent Generations United, and I noticed that on March 11th, from 1 to 2:30, you're going to have an intergenerational conversation in working groups. How do you register for that? Is the registration over?
No.
Do you just show up? What's the process?
I definitely recommend to register. It is on our website, and it will be in the newsletter. It's under Conversation Circles. And Ivy will explain all of this. She's our next speaker.
Okay, great.
So great. If we're getting questions about Ivy's presentation, thank you, Sun Young. We'll continue this conversation, and thank you for all of your comments. And I really do want to thank Sun Young because we were at a loss in trying to figure out how we were going to bring global civil society to the table. And we were doing the best we can. We have the advisory group, like I said, but we needed something completely separate than UN Women that and thank you for the creative ideas that you come up with. And And I brought her back from retirement because she was done with NGO CSW, and I said, 1 more year, please. But hopefully she will never leave. Thank you, Ivy.
Please excuse my voice in advance. But I wanted to thank Soon Young as well, and also we haven't mentioned it so much, but you know, NGO CSW has an advocacy grant, and you know, Soon Young has been behind that since its inception 4 or 5 years ago. 5 already, 5 years. So you know, that means that you know, approaching member states for the grants and funding and all the reporting that's involved, you know, coordinating the trainers around the world, and then having the training sessions here during the CSW. It's a lot of work. And so she's doing a lot voluntarily, and so I just had to mention that because that plus this FW map takes a lot of time and resources, and so I really thank her for that because not everyone can step up and take on so much.
You don't even have a t-shirt for her.
I know, I have to create. But so with that, I was tasked actually to talk about our actions and what we can do. Because initially we were talking about trying to clarify all the groupings, and like Soon Young said, who, you know, all of that, we can get lost in all of it, and I think a lot of us have been getting lost. Advisor Working Group, Core Group, Group 21, blah, 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 GF and whatever. It doesn't really matter, you know, if that exists and there's information there, if you really want to dig deep into all of that, we have that information on our website. But I think what's most important is what we can actually do, right? What can we be involved in? That's why we had such a really extensive presentation on the FW map, because that is an area that we can still be involved in, and it will continue beyond 2020. These are coalitions, this is alliance building that we hope will continue. Saying we, I mean, again, this is not an NGO CSW thing. I'm part of it, right? I've joined it as an individual. But so the conversation circle space is a very important space. It's our innovative space, first time ever at CSW. There are going to be 3 days of conversation circles. It's open from 10 to 6 every day. And there are caucus meetings and other things happening, you know, before those hours and after those hours, but that's not part of the conversation circles. But I just wanted you to know that caucuses are also running in the same venue space. That's the Armenian Convention Center auditorium. The space holds actually over 400 people. It's a very big space. And we're going to have roundtables set up, and this is where the conversations are taking place. And the FW maps are happening twice a day, and they're on different topics. But because everything is cross-cutting, I think even if you happen to be in a topic that's not necessarily your expertise, I'm sure you can bring your expertise and weave it in because of the linkages that you can make in that. And I'm personally going to challenge myself in an area I'm not familiar with as much, in order to see where what I'm passionate about or what I'm working on can, you know, take part in that. So just wanted to mention that. And then we have these lunchtime sessions. So from 1 to 2:30 every day. We're calling these brown bag lunch. We're not providing lunch, I'm sorry. We would love to. We will be providing morning, will be provided. We do have some sponsors, but most of it is coming from the NGO CSW, actually. And we were hoping to create an environment so that people would want to, you know, sit around and meet people and relax a little between sessions. Maybe even, you know, soak in all that they've been learning from all the parallel events and side events. As we know, there's always a limit to space wherever we go in these events, and UN as well with security and all of that. We all know the challenges. So this is going to be the kind of retreat space for everybody. So that's why we also built in this yoga thing. There's not enough room for everyone. I think it's about 20 mats or something like that. So it's really, whoever can get to the stage first without battling it out. But we'll have plenty of volunteers there from this group called Exhale to Inhale. And my understanding of this group is that they deal with, I don't want to call any women who have experienced, trauma, violence. And so they are facilitating that. They have their own trainers there. And so the brown bag lunch, going back to that, we encourage everyone at this space, this is the only space, because a parallel event space, we do not allow food or drinks. But for the Armenians,
and
the Grey Panthers, it's an intergenerational dialogue. I'm sure that's going to be excellent. They have been planning for months. I've been seeing all the back and forth, and so I think the girls, everybody that's a part of that, it's going to be fantastic. They're going to stick to the same 6 thematic themes, the clusters that's being discussed at FW MAP. It's the same, topics. It's going to be led, facilitated by a girl, and I believe, I don't know, the other.
I can talk more about it
okay.
if anyone has interest.
So we have a little bit of a blurb, again, more in detail on our website. So if you go into the NGO forum, you go into conversation circles, and if you scroll down, you're going to have a little oh, that's it. Thank you. Oh. Okay, I just say it and it just appears. Wonderful. Okay, so that's one space, and like I said, the FW map, you can join this group at any time. So if you want to join, what's the email address?
Okay.
If they want to join the sign up of
you are active for the
working. Oh, sorry, that's a different one. Yeah, but the FW map. If you want to do Maestro conferencing, if you haven't heard this yet, you'll get emails.
I was not many years not in the country. Just came back.
But just email us, because right now we're like the hub, joining the GEF, the generation equality, and also what's happening. We're supporting this action plan, and so that conversation circle, Maestro conferences, and being a part of a thematic group so that you can continue. It's very important that you actually sign up for a Maestro conference, because that serves as the data. So if you want any connection, that's the only thing that the FW map has that we can connect you in the future, for other.
It's like a radio station that's open in the area.
Yes, and this will continue, like I said, on and on. The generation equality forums, all of that, ends 2020, that's it. And so what's happening with the working group, the Beijing Plus 25 and all of that, that will also stop at a certain point, maybe after GA. But really, I think mostly just after France happens, then maybe not. And the action coalitions, though, that's a 5-year plan of action. I think you're aware now of what those 6 action coalitions are, but the question about the leadership of those coalitions is in reference to that. So just trying to keep that separate from, what we're talking about here, which this is truly civil society, 100%. Okay. I think that's it, unless you have questions.
I have a question. So this is on the website, the schedule?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is all our website.
You should do a website, like, how to get from this page to instruction.
Okay. Anything else?
Can I ask something? I mean, there's not much
time left to decide. Like you said, I'm new, and I do want to participate. I am not sure, this action leader coalition, that's something else. Okay,
advising committee. That sounds interesting, but I'm not. So is that about like organizing parallel organizations? I just can't follow everything.
Sure.
But I do want to participate before it starts, if it's possible.
Yeah. The advisory working group is already happening. Like it was from the fall. It's been meeting every 2 weeks, and everybody connects by Zoom. So everyone's connecting from home. It's not a physical meeting. Yeah. The Maestro is also a conferencing thing. So we do this by phone or your computer. Yeah. Oh.
Do you want me to pull up the deck?
Oh. So you're advising, you would like to know what we're advising on for the advisory working group?
Also, yes.
It's the generation equality forums that are happening. And they're the 6 thematic clusters, but UN Women has, together with CORE and everybody else, has already identified 6 action coalitions. And so now they're wanting civil society's input into that. And input even into the criteria of who is going to go to the Generation Equality Forum.
How is it going to work?
So this is all engaging.
Can I be involved in that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's equality, gender equality.
Generation equality.
Generation equality.
Yeah.
And this advisory working group is going to end by July. I don't even think will last until July. When the Paris Forum happens, we have no need. So this advisory group is literally to advise the advisory group, the advisory working group, who advises the core group, who's literally right now planning who gets to go to Mexico and Paris, how does Action Coalition work, what is Action Coalition?
I would like to, and how, if I were to get involved,
I think this is what I would advise.
How does it work?
This is what I was saying earlier, and I'm glad you're asking, because a lot of people are probably thinking and just, you know, it's really important that you email. You can email info, and then we'll add your name.
Okay, sure.
We'll add your name, and the next meeting is on the 3rd, I believe.
3rd of what? Of March?
I'm interested in everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the minute you get the first email that says save the date, the 3rd, we're having a meeting, you're gonna see so many links in there.
Okay.
Give yourself a couple of hours and just read through, listen to these things. And it really will make sense once you get it. And then the next time you're on the call, you won't feel like you're brand new.
Yeah.
And even if you're brand new, even if you don't have to listen, once you get on the call, you'll see how it works. It's a very friendly.
But can we actually contribute? Can we be
I
active?
hope so. I sure hope so.
Because
There's a form in there that says, what is your idea? Let's say you did your research and you found out what's happening. We collect information. People send us, they literally fill up the form and they say, I'm in Sahara Desert, I'm in Syria, I'm a refugee, or I'm in, sex worker here, or I'm in a trafficked person there. And then they tell us what they think is the most important issue to deal with. And then we bring that to.
But for each meeting, you can fill out a form to add something to the agenda. So that's a different thing.
That's also, you can also say.
So during the meetings, you can contribute.
Yes, I always do that. So I was.
But the other one that we're encouraging, this is okay, this is really great, and if you're interested in generation equality, the other one we're encouraging is the FW map.
Yes, I'm interested in every subject, so it's great.
So this one, because this one is going to be ongoing. This one, as you can see, how many hands were raised in this group.
But she said it is going to be finished at one.
No, not this.
No.
This does not finish.
Okay.
This is the one that we're creating a groundswell of civil society.
She's like, what happened?
Oh, that's right.
This is very good now. Very good.
I'm going to have to leave, but I wanted to say something.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Something about the Action Coalition.
People who are new to the process, who hear that the Action Coalition deadline is tomorrow, have already written it off their agenda, which is wrong. It's really important to remember that this process is going to keep going. And what we're encouraging is something different from the model that is being set up, really a good model set up by UN Women, in which you apply to be a leader and then you work with the government at national level.
I want to do that. Exactly. Yes. Okay. In national, going.
Okay, let's not have a free-for-all discussion. I just need to complete this thought.
Yeah. Okay.
So the thought is, it's really important that we imagine the possibility that we learn from what is happening in that model. It's an innovative concept that we ally ourselves with government. But does it have to be national government? Why can't it be city government? Why can't it be state government? Subnational government, where a lot of innovation is happening. So this process that we're starting is going to be advocating in those conversation circles, please come, that we do a bottom-up action coalition. That we think about you starting an action coalition where you are and where you can work. Because it's the only way that we're actually going to get a unified action. So we're going to work top down, but we also need to work bottom up. So join us and let's imagine how we can do that.
Yeah, that was important.
Wait, can I just add?
Yes.
Also, just a little clarification about the action coalitions. The deadline tomorrow is just for leadership positions. Just like general participation in them is a different process that's going to be ongoing.
That's right. There's room for more membership.
But what
in
is
each
the
action
deadline?
coalition.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. And tomorrow is the deadline for what exactly?
The
To leadership. To apply
Two
to be
governments, two
in the
sort of-
leadership.
I'm interested in applying for that. How do I do it?
Then just send a 2-page letter explaining exactly why you qualify to be a leader in one of these action coalitions.
Which one?
To action.
All
Can you
of-
pull up the action coalitions? It's
All-
also on our website.
All of this information is on UN
UN
Women.
Can you just tell me, please, just very quickly, tell me which two coalition? Just tell me their names.
There's 6 of them.
There's 6 of them. They're all there's 6 of them.
Right. Beth, please.
Can you just give me a link, please, to that specific
If
6
you-
coalitions?
If you go onto unwomen.org,
UN Women.
and then here,
Leadership.
if you go into
National leadership.
no. If you go onto UN Women's website,
Okay.
there's a generation equality.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Beth Blissman, Loretto Community.
There's-
Following up on Sun Young's comment about working at the state,
The forum.
local
Okay.
levels, the grassroots levels. I was wondering
Action
if there was anyone
coalitions.
else who's connected to
And
the
all of the
Cities for
information is
CEDAW
there.
movement here in the U.S.
By tomorrow is
If-
the deadline.
Yes.
besides Sheila.
long
And
does this
if
go
you would
for?
like to meet briefly
5 years.
afterwards, we
I
do
wanna
have
do it. I don't
another
have time. I need
research
somebody to talk to, so
project
I
going
can-
this year where we have an intern
All of it's on
working
UN
with
Women's
all the
website.
contacts
When
that
is
we
that?
have to
By
find
what
out the
time? What
progress
time?
that's being made with the
Deadline.
US-based Cities for CEDAW movement again this year. So the whole meeting at CSW this year will not be taken up reporting
By
on the
what time? Does
progress
it
that's
say?
being
I'm
made
looking.
in various different cities and localities throughout the US. So just wanted to let folks know that that research is happening as we speak, actually, and that there is a strong and vibrant Cities for CEDAW movement happening
Can you
here in the
lead me through
US.
this one more time?
And
Can you
there's
lead
some
me
great
through?
connections
Yeah,
Just one
we
more
have with
I'm looking
Columbia
for it.
University and other
Gotta get it.
places and spaces. That meeting hasn't been totally set
I don't
yet,
think
but
there
it
is
will
a time.
occur
I
at
think
some
like
point
midnight.
during the
Okay, can
first
you just
week.
one more time
So
lead
if
me
that's
through
something
to
you have
how I
interest
find
in,
this
I'd be happy to
deadline?
take your name and email address.
Do you want me to
at
just
the,
email it to you?
First week of CSW, sorry, the week of the 9th sometime.
I
So
read
if
that.
this is the first you're hearing as a US citizen about the
What's
city's
your email?
movement in the US and you want more information and want to get connected, I'd be happy to take your information. Thank you.
Any questions on that? That's actually really important, and I'm so glad Sun Young remembered to mention that before she left. It's, you know, the global top-down is important, but we are also trying to create a movement from a bottom up.
Have a Zoom, so they may record it. I'm interested in that too.
You can talk to her about Cities for CEDAW. You need to do some research before
It's a
you
lot of
bring it.
information.
I
It's a
mean,
lot of information.
exactly, and
Yeah.
we already actually, half the room here heard this for the 10th time.
Okay.
So please do some
Okay,
research and then email
Yes,
us for
okay, sure.
specific questions. Anybody on this side? Okay, fantastic. So again,
this is really to encourage you to join the Women's Action Plan, the Feminist Women's Movement Action Plan. And if you are still interested in the advisory group, please email us and we'll add your name. So I hope this was helpful. We really needed to have like this check-in right before. You had a question that you said about the youth. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for staring me down. I like that. I like people stare me down. So we have an amazing couple of events actually.
Sorry. We have a rally. So when we put up that schedule earlier about conversation circles, I said that's the 10 to 6 time frame, but we do have things happening before and after that. And one of those big things is that Young Professionals is sponsoring a youth activist space on the 3rd day, so 9th, 10th, 11th of March from 6 o'clock. So 6 to 7:30 in the Armenian Center auditorium. The youth activists are getting together. And Safira, do you have anything else to add that you want to share with that? We're going to send out a MailChimp about this. So look out for that. That's happening very soon. So.
What ages? How young? High school?
Oh, what's the young? What age now for young professionals? Is it? And anyone who feels like a young person, so they're not putting an age.
But I'm comfortable with 18 to 40, and if you're 50 and you still feel young, high schoolers though. Yeah, I think so.
Yes, yes, high school's fine. Yes.
It says 14, 30, between 14 and 30 in the application.
Our application?
Yes, it says 14 and 30.
Our application says 14 to 30 years old. I don't know if we have an application. Yeah, that's probably you and women. Yeah. I think we had even had, at one point we did say on our website up to 40 years old. So we were, yeah.
By youth is preferred when you're
So does that answer your question? That's Wednesday night.
Thank you so much.
So you could be 52.
To be honest, why not? You know?
So that's separate. That one, like you know, we had said 100 people, only 100 seats for that, and there's going to be a lot of people applying. But for this young youth activists on Wednesday night, you know, we have. I mean, people are just squishing together. I'm sure you could get like 800 people in. I mean, if you're just standing only. So space is not so much an issue at the auditorium.
And we're also excited about our rally, which is on Friday. It's definitely happening. Please all be there. We're hoping to do the Chilean, the rapist is you. We're going to dance on 46th and 2nd, 1st. And that's Friday, 47th and 1st. Thank you. That's on Friday, 13 March, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. That's right. We have a rally committee right there. Leslie, do you want to add something?
I don't know.
Please, this is a free
Okay, all right. I've just
Everybody
been
can
asked to state my right.
Well, the disappointing thing about all of this is that it's very top-down. When you look at Beijing, it was so organic, and probably because they have more space. You know, and so I understand the need to try to come up with a feminist and women's movement platform, but I really am opposed to having people sign statements of, you know, what's expected, how they're going to participate. I forget what you call those. The guiding, you know, principles or what have you. I mean, I think you have to be really careful so that you're not excluding people, because I know that what happened in Geneva was a very divisive thing. People signed that, they didn't realize what they were agreeing to, and some of the things that happened, I think, were so unfortunate and really hurt people quite a bit on both sides.
If you have a few minutes, can we have this discussion?
It has to do with guiding, you know, if you have guidelines, they shouldn't be platforms on issues.
Absolutely.
And that was what happened, and I think that, you know, you have to be really careful in terms of, I know you have something that you put out there, right? downloaded it and printed it out, but I haven't read it.
Leslie, if you have only 2 minutes, I know you have your hand back to leave, but can we have a 2-minute discussion on this?
Yeah, sure.
I am so grateful for this discussion. You have no idea. This is exactly what we talk about with the executive committee. And if people are talking in the background, can I please have everybody's attention? This actually is really, really important. And this is the discussion that I would like to have with the group that's left here.
Yeah, because I think when you talk about having something that's going to be creative and innovative, that really happens by having an open process. It doesn't happen by having a top-down controlled process. I've been on some of these Maestro calls, and they are very controlled. There are only a few people who get a chance in the breakout rooms to say anything. I don't really know how that's going to lead to any kind of research or positions. But maybe it will. I mean, maybe there's other things that are coming into play. That's just not the end of the world, these Maestro conferences. But I think when people are on the Maestro conferences, it's only an hour and a half, and there are hundreds of people that are on these calls, and it's impossible to have anything organic come out of it.
Exactly.
So, anyway.
No, please don't leave. No.
No, I'm just,
this
is running out of power,
keep the microphone, because you of all people.
It's running out of power, so I can't.
Leslie, people like you, Queen Mother, Sheila, all of you who speak up are very near and dear to our hearts, because we need people like you to call us out on what we're doing right or wrong. We are not here to try to take over.
No, I know you're not. No. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're trying to take over anything.
But I'm just
saying that it's disappointing to me.
I'm not sounding defensive. I'm just explaining on how this works and how it's going to work. The Maestro system is something that we're experimenting with. It is amazing. It is amazing how many people are actually very excited and are feeling like they're part of, like, what we're hearing from them mostly is that, wow, I've learned so much.
Different kinds of benefits.
Yeah, exactly. But for people like you who are already an expert and you've been to Beijing, you're like, okay, when are we taking action? How am I being heard? And I'm not saying you specifically, people, some other people, and you maybe. How am I going to make my voice heard and move forward and really make a difference? And that's one of the reasons why we created the conversation circles, right? I mean, I do hope that you get to speak in those breakout rooms. People who are in those breakout rooms, and I've been in a few of them, sometimes people take the mics and I'm like, can somebody else say something that's
Depends
more
on what I
powerful?
have to sign in order to be part of it. I didn't know that they had a...
No, okay, let me explain that. Let me explain what Sun Young was talking about, the signing. The chances of anybody being kicked out from a space that we're part of is, I don't know how little.
I saw it happen in Geneva.
Well, the reason we're saying that is because we don't want what happened in Geneva. We really don't want our program to be sidelined by one or two voices. We want conversation. We want us to stop the room, just the way we are doing right now, and say, let's have a conversation. I don't have the answers. Right now I have the mic, doesn't mean I have the answers. What I'm saying, what I'm begging everybody to think about is that whatever it is that you want to be heard for, we want to hear that, no matter what side you're on. The one person I don't want to hear from is the person who says, close your legs and you can't be raped, or abortion will create cancer, or you know, whatever you can imagine.
There's no such thing as global warming.
Thank you, the climate thing, for example. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about sisters who might agree or disagree about the way we achieve things. We want trafficking stopped. Now, I'm going to address it flat out. Are we still on social media?
Yes.
That's fine. Good. All right. So, you know, trafficking and sex workers, this is what really separates a lot of our sisters.
Yes.
And my feeling, here it is publicly, I'm saying it, I am not taking sides on either, both as chair and personally as a Houthi person, right? I cannot take sides. I want to take the side of a woman who needs help, and I want to be there to help them if I can. So I want to talk to people who are really addressing that issue from that point of view. So if you or somebody else, again, I'm sorry I keep saying you know what I mean by you, right?
The collective view.
If those people who are going to come and stop our process because they believe in one strong opinion and they're not willing to say, okay, I guess maybe there's other ways of stopping traffic, or, you know, we have to accept some women who are choosing to live in a different way you know, the non-binary, the trans people. I mean, these are human beings that I care about. I'm a human rights kind of a person, and I want to create that kind of a space. And when I say I hope I'm speaking on behalf of the executive committee and NGO CSW. That's what we're here for. So we're not having anybody sign papers so that we can divide. We want to sign papers so we can bring people together and we can have this discussion together. And this is it. And then I'm going to stop, and please be ready to answer me and shut me down. I really am begging. I did this on the advisory working group, I think. I am begging for people like you, all of the experienced people here to send me information on how we can achieve that. We did a code of conduct. We consulted with 4 different experts and organizations, and we said, what rules can we put down on this code of conduct that doesn't alienate, that brings people together? But now I'm still begging. I'm saying it's not enough, it's not perfect, because we're still having this conversation, which is great. So I need ideas and opinions on what do we say. I wish we could just have 3 lines, you know, like one of those bullet points, 3 bullet points that clearly explains that you are welcome as a human being, your opinion is welcome, but you cannot sabotage and sideline, push us aside when we're trying to achieve equality for all women and girls and non-binary, trans, and we want to crush patriarchy, we want to stop militarism, we want to reverse colonialism. These are big things that we have to
agree with you, and you don't have to agree with me, but we should be able to discuss this and agree to disagree. I raised some questions, which is where I was getting to, you know, when I spoke with Leslie and them just now. So I think you need to convene a meeting with some folks here. You need to have another meeting before the end of this meeting going forward, so that we can get this on track. When I hear the term top down, it gives me chills and almost a heart attack, and I don't want to die yet. But no, because we started, you know, the Cities for CSW movement out of NGO CSW with Sun Young's vision. And when I was asked to chair, and I said, well, do it if it's bottom up, which is the way we are working, right? And we have made tremendous strides in this city. The first time I'm hearing about the CSW something was a while ago. I'm a chair for New York City. I heard nothing about this. We just finished a toolkit, right? Done by Columbia University. I brought in Columbia University into CSW, right? And our group or coalition, including Susan was on that, we tore the toolkit apart. This is for the government, for the mayor's office. And we tore the toolkit apart and we sent it back, right? You were on that. And so when I come here and I hear, I feel like crying because I'm hearing top down.
But she said.
But no, yes, it's top down. And then Sunil isn't here, and then it was said that, and bottom up. You know, it's like, okay, we'll include you and that sort of thing. This is NGO CSW, so anything you put your signature on has to be bottom up, right? Or else we're selling out. That's what number 45 is doing. So this is this is serious, guys.
I'm very serious.
This is very serious, and it's breaking my heart. And I didn't know I could become emotional about this.
Wait, Sheila, this is not a performance right now.
I am not performing. Don't you tell me about performance. I am speaking truth to, if you are the power,
yes.
I'm speaking that truth,
yes,
to all of us here.
Let me bring you back to the reality of today. Why did we have this meeting today? This meeting was to have this discussion. So you cannot accuse us of top down when we are here. We ask our members to come in, to listen to what we're doing, and to ask them their opinion so that we can improve on what we're doing. How other way can you do bottom up?
And I'm also, just before you took the mic, I also said, I need your opinion, your suggestions on how you would do it, so that we can consider it.
And I'm giving you my opinion that the term top-down should not be used at all.
Even generation equality is avoiding doing things top-down. If a few people are feeling left out, we are here to say you are welcome. Come in, let me hear your voices. I'm still trying, like, is it my English? Is it the way I'm talking?
No.
You know, I mean, again.
Pick a language. I'll speak to you in that language. And this is not about you. Okay?
No,
it's
I'm
about,
representing.
hold on. It is about, you asked my opinion, and I'm saying top down is a problem. Telling people they're invited, and, well, I don't need to repeat anything, or we can go back forever. So it can even happen, right? And you're saying, oh, because it's bottom up, that's why we're all here. But the dictate says, what?
What? We're saying
Top
come
down.
to conversation circles and give us your opinion. What is not bottom up about that?
Why are you
We
quarreling?
created a space and said come to conversation circles. We are doing consultation online through Maestro right now. We are asking for your opinions. You send your opinion. Then we're inviting you to conversation circles. We rented a huge room that can hold 500 people. We're saying come to conversation circles and talk to us what is important.
Uri, I heard all of that. Uri, I said to use the term top down, and I'm giving you the mic, Devin. To use the term top down is very, very like.
So what if we say
throwing us
top down and
back.
bottom up? What does that do? You have to do both, right? You have to also advocate. You also have to top down means you're advocating at the top while you're collecting information from the bottom.
Top down is what Trump is doing.
Please do not put that name and the same sentence
No,
when you're
top
talking
down,
about
it is
what we're
serious. It is very serious
Well,
like what's
I'm very
happening.
serious. Why
Not
not
only in
serious?
America, but the world.
I don't know if I should voyage into this.
It's 3
but
o'clock.
no, I'm just I want to know about the code of conduct. That's what I want to know.